Welcome, welcome. Peace and blessings, y'all. It is I, El DeLeon, aka El the Lion, and you are listening to Love Bay Music Talk Afrobeat Radio right here tonight. We have a very special show. We have a guest on who's someone that I have known for quite some time in a working relationship, and I'm really excited to dive in to find out more about this individual and how they really came to be able to do what they're doing right now. And you know how it goes here on Voices of the Millennials with me. We always have an elevated conversation. We really dive deep into the breakdowns that individuals go through and how those breakdowns lead to breakthroughs. It's not always an easy path to success. But one of the things that one of our guests told us on one of the first shows was that the definition of success is to be able to go from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm, because inevitably you will fail at one of these things that you are trying to do while you are, on that ladder all the way up. And so as I elevate, or as I rise, I love to elevate others. And so here we are tonight, elevating another individual. But before we get into bringing that individual on, I do want to let you know a little bit about them. And also stick around for the end of the show because I will be making a special announcement and you don't want to miss that. Okay. You do not want to miss the announcement. So let's let you know about the guest that is going to be on tonight's show. I'll read a little bit about them. So, Joelle Zola is a passionate advocate for empowering marginalized voices. And it's the visionary founder of Street Voices, which is a youth led not for profit organization that was inspired by his own experiences, the untapped potential that he saw in at risk youth is really what inspired Joel to start his own not for profit that was a platform for marginalized voices to be heard. And he's called it Street Voices. You can find them on Street Voices TO on Instagram. One of the things that I found really interesting about this organization and about Joel's journey is that this began as a magazine for street youth, and it has now blossomed into an organization with a multifaceted approach to address the challenges that are faced by marginalized communities. And so Street Voices has launched several impactful initiatives, some that I've had the pleasure of working on with Joel. And also, one of them is the Street Voices directory, where it serves as a comprehensive resource for people to be able to connect with individuals who are in the media industry, connecting them with subsidized services, and additional, and these are spanning across many different industries. So not only media, but now has expanded into other types of resources that street youth would need, or just even people in general. I even use this directory. So thank you so much to Joel for creating that. And I think that I've said enough about this individual. I don't want to give it all away because they are in the building. They are going to be coming in very shortly. And when they do, oh, look at that. The individual is here. Magic. Yes, I love
Yeah,
how this
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
Hey, Joelle, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Blessings. I'm really
Mhm.
glad that you can make it tonight. So I was letting the folks know, our listeners, that a little bit about Street Voices, very little bit about how you actually got involved in Street Voices. I know that it's through your own personal experiences that you
Mhm.
really decided to start this magazine for youth that were at risk and youth that were living on the streets. So I
Mhm.
would love to maybe just dive in right there. Like, how did this all start for you?
Mhm.
One of the things we love to talk about on Elevated Conversations is about the breakdowns that lead to
Mhm.
breakthroughs. And from what I know about your story, you definitely went through some breakdowns, but definitely broke through to some big
Mhm.
accomplishments. So I'd love to know, how did you get started, and
Mhm.
how was Street Voices born?
No, for sure. So the breakdown probably would have started 15 years ago, which is when I got kicked out the house at the age of 15 years. I got kicked out for dropping out of school, getting in trouble, etc. So then I was basically a homeless youth for the next 7 years. And by the way, the city I got kicked out of was in Calgary. So I was a homeless youth starting in Calgary, and I lived in the shelters in Calgary, and I lived in the shelters in Edmonton, lived in the shelters in British Columbia, all the different youth shelters at the time. Because I was like, I forgot what the term was, what we call it. I think we're just permanent street youth, you know. So then I ended up moving to Toronto. Um, when at the age of 18, I moved to Toronto. I ended up getting money from a job employment program that I joined, and so that program was called the Kaleidoscope program. It was a film training program. It was for like training youth who want to like enter the media industry, learn about script writing, acting, and just media in general. You know, and at that point, that's when I learned I had a passion for media. And prior to that, I really didn't have no direction. Part of the reason why I got kicked out of school, you know, I was also in the streets. That's part of the reason why I got in trouble with the law, you know. So it wasn't until I joined this program that I kind of started having like a goals and visions in mind, you know. And I would say that's why I chose to come to Toronto. And the difference with Toronto as opposed to when I went to Edmonton or when I went to Vancouver was that I actually came here with an intention, and that intention was to work in the media industry. So
Okay.
I ended up coming here. I joined school as a mature student to go to film institute, and then I also ended up dropping out of school as well. I dropped out of college as well,
Mhm.
and here I was, a homeless youth in Ontario, trying to make it in the media industry. And the first step I've already kind of like stepped out, you know, already stepped away from, which was the college route. And then but ironically I did end up getting a job in the media industry, right? So then my first job ever was working on movie sets. So I was working with like IATSE. It's like a film union for those people who are aware of them. So background in movie sets and stuff. And yeah, it was really good, and things were going well at that point. But then the film industry is seasonal, so then that slowed down. And then keep in mind I'm living at the shelter at this time.
Okay.
And yeah, actually, to be specific, I was living in a transitional home. So Eva's Phoenix transitional home, it's called a transitional home because it's not exactly like an emergency shelter, because you get your own room, you're allowed to get visitors, etc. But the catch is you have to be like paying some kind of rent. You know, they give you the money back, but that's kind of like the catch. You kind of have to be working to stay in this transitional home. So I'm literally, so like, because the film industry is seasonal, I end up losing my job. And then I'm basically back at square one. Um well, actually more square zero, because I'm already in a transitional home, but now I'm in a transitional home with no job. So the way it works in the transitional homes is if you have no job, you go back to emergency shelter. So emergency shelter, y'all could do research. That's a little bit more. It's a bit more rough. You know, more rough. You get a roommate. A lot of things happen in there. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I was on the verge of going back to the emergency shelter system, and they basically told me that I needed to get a job. And yeah, so at the time, um, I know you asked for like the
Yeah.
breakthrough.
Yeah. Yep.
The story kind of has like a breakdown and a breakthrough, because we haven't even got to Street Voices yet, you know.
Yes. Yes.
But I guess the Street Voices part comes. Basically, I was just a homeless youth who was trying to make it in the media industry,
Mhm.
and I got laid off because my work was seasonal. And at the beginning, it really wasn't even about a job, because when Street Voices started, it really was making $0 for like the longest time. You
Mhm.
know, a lot of it was more just like, as somebody who's in a situation of lesser circumstance, my voice not being heard. And I
Yeah.
realized that the voices around me as well wasn't being heard. And I realized that there wasn't really a platform that prioritized the voices of people in my situation. Me being a young black homeless youth in Canada, you know, I kind of felt like there really wasn't anybody listening. So that's what inspired Street Voices
Mm-hmm.
initially, and it started off as a magazine for street youth while I was living in that shelter at the time, the same shelter I was telling you about, Eva's Phoenix transitional home. And yeah, and at first Street Voices was just a magazine, and we collected poetry, and it has since turned into a magazine for street youth to become an online platform, media platform. You can follow us on Instagram at Street Voices TO, also Twitter as well. And we
Mm-hmm.
also have a website where we do articles, and we also have an online directory like Elle was mentioning, and the directory is for anybody who's in need of services. So our directory, if you're looking for like food bank, shelters, adult shelter, youth shelter, women's services, if you go to directory types as a category, so we have all these different categories and you can filter the searches as well. So what inspired the directory was because when I was homeless, because I was homeless for about 7 years,
Yeah.
because even when I started Street Voices as a homeless youth. So I was still homeless for the first 3 years running Street Voices.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like so, as a homeless youth, like a lot of my survival relied on these free food services, free drop-in services, free employment. Like even me getting to Toronto, I ended up, that was an employment program that I was in, so that got me the money to get here.
Okay.
But yeah, exactly, and the thing is, like, but you're not really aware of all these different services. So that's what inspired the directory, was kind of creating a one-stop shop for people who are in need of these different services for survival. And yeah, that's where we are today, streetvoices.ca. We're up and running. I kind of fast forwarded 30 years, no, 15 years, because I
Right.
went from like 15 to like where we are today. But I'm sure I'll ask more questions. So yeah.
Yes, for sure. Honestly, that is a very, for me to hear that from you, inspiring journey, because it's already hard enough trying to start your own thing and get your voice heard. And then on top of that, having to deal with, shelter needs and losing your job. And uh, what really inspired you? I'm really curious to know what were the things that helped you to be able to go forth with this dream, because I'm sure, as you said, you fast forwarded for us, you gave us a summary. I can only imagine how it was trying to secure your housing and your job, and then you're saying, hey, let me start a magazine. So
Mhm.
what was the thing that really helped you to keep going with that idea despite whatever challenges may have arose as you were trying to do that?
I think and the two things would be naivety, and the second thing would be stubbornness.
Okay.
Because the naivety makes you want to jump in there in the first place, and the stubbornness makes you not want to give up. So I think I definitely underestimated how tough it would be, because actually the first issue of Street Voices was literally a pamphlet. It was not a magazine.
Mhm.
Because I didn't know that a magazine needed like a graphic designer. I didn't even know what graphic design was at the time. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, I guess, yeah, but the stubbornness to not give up, basically, and the naivety to actually attempt to do something that I knew was going to be difficult, but I underestimated how difficult.
And what was the first step that you took, if you can remember, in
Yeah,
creating the magazine?
yeah. I think the first step that I took was telling the staff that I wanted to do this, because I told the staff in the shelter that I
Okay.
wanted to create a platform. Um, and at the time, it wasn't even called Street Voices. It was just, I just said we need some type of like platform, some type of magazine, So
Mhm.
so I told the staff that the shelter was living at, and the staff helped like gather the youth and stuff like that. So
Okay.
mm,
And were you a contributor to the magazine at first? Because you mentioned that it started out with poetry and it was a
mm.
collection of poems. Were you one of the writers for this?
Yeah, I definitely, because I actually did used to do poetry,
Mhm.
and I forget it. I forget that about myself sometimes,
Yeah,
that
I was just like, wait, I didn't know about that. I did not
yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. I forget it about myself. That's actually how I even came into that world, because I think, because actually I was publishing poetry, and I
Mhm.
also did want to get my own poetry published. So I did publish poetry in the first edition.
Okay.
And yeah, and I did also used to do spoken word, and I've been to Rise and performed at Rise as
Yes,
well,
yeah.
So yeah. Mhm.
Oh, amazing, amazing. And what about now? I'm very curious. Do you do any poetry now? Do you
Mhm.
find time to be creative now that you are on the admin side and the entrepreneurial side?
Yeah, no, I always say I got to the admin entrepreneurial side by accident, by
Mhm,
complete accident, because I think like I started off as an artist, and then before you knew it, I become like a nonprofit executive. So a lot of my focus is focused on fundraising and
mhm.
etc. You know what I mean? Fundraising, program delivery, and so it's kind of like killed the artistic bug in me. I did write something. I don't know if it's like something I'm gonna perform in the
Oh,
future.
today?
You
Oh, in the
know, no,
future.
it's been a while. It's been a while, but who
Mhm.
knows? Like, I think I like I think the future is very unpredictable. So I
It
never say never. Yeah.
it definitely is. And I mean, I would love to know, was poetry one of the things that got you through, like, being on the streets, like, the times
Mhm,
when you didn't have secure
mhm,
housing, especially thinking you said that, you were in Calgary, and Edmonton, Alberta. I've been there, it's very cold.
mhm,
It's very cold,
mhm.
so I can
It is.
only imagine.
Yeah.
Toronto's cold as well.
Yeah.
So what were some of the things that got you through, and maybe some of the resources that you tapped into? Because you mentioned not knowing about resources, but how did
Mhm,
you eventually start to find them?
mhm. Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like you asked two questions, but
Yes, yes, definitely
I'll
ask you.
answer both of them. I'll answer. So, but I definitely say that poetry definitely was something that definitely helped me get through those times, because I think poetry for me, a lot of it was healing, and maybe and I'm thinking maybe I don't write as much poetry because I'm not homeless anymore. You know what I mean? Like I'm not in a, you know what I mean? I felt like I wrote more poetry when I was in the predicament that I was in back in the days, and it definitely did help me get through tough times. um and but your second question,
Yeah, I was wondering, about, actually, did I forget what I was thinking? I might have, I might have. It was, related to, just wanting to know, what were the resources? How did you
oh, okay.
eventually start
No, for
to
sure.
figure out, yeah, where the
No,
resources were? Yeah.
for sure, for sure. I think like I know, like when I came to Toronto, for example, I was staying in a youth shelter called Covenant House, and then Covenant House, I told them that I was into like art as well. So no, Covenant House actually told me about a drop-in center called Young Street Mission, and Young Street Mission was like a drop-in center for like street youth and like Toronto. So if you're like a street youth in Toronto, you're most likely familiar with them. And then so I would go there for like food and stuff, right? Because Youngster Mission's open during the day. Covenant House, it's not, they kick you out during the day. So go to
Okay.
Youngster Mission during the day, you get your food. They have computers. They even have healthcare, all of that, right? So I'm in Youngster Mission. I'm talking to the staff, and I'm like, hey, I'm into like art. And then the staff is like, oh, you should know about sketch, right? So then I go to Sketchworking Arts, and Sketchworking
Oh,
Arts is like a next community center where they have like a recording studio and like visual art studio, movement studio, all of that. So definitely check them out. Sketchworkingarts.ca. And so that's how I got familiar with Sketch. And actually Sketch is actually what saved me from when I was in the shelter system, because remember, like I needed to get a job, and Sketch actually had a 1 year training program where you could
mhm.
actually get paid to work on your own craft. So I ended up getting that contract, and for a year I got paid to work on my poetry, and I got paid to work on street voices, and that's actually how I
Okay.
leveraged that to getting into the field.
Wow.
Yes.
Amazing, amazing. And I mean, just hearing that, of course, we've now, to me, I'm piecing together all the parts of the story, and I'm definitely seeing the pattern of, although there were these major breakdowns, like, losing your job, not easy, losing your
Mhm.
housing, not easy, but then getting connected with other resources because of the fact that you're in these
Yeah.
positions but then you making sure that you're using that pain and transforming it into power. I really thank you for this testimony, because it does just go to show what you can do with being able to shift your perspective of where you are and
Mhm.
utilizing that to your advantage, as you said, leveraging those opportunities, these periods
Mhm.
of time where you have a lot of time to yourself. And that's really cool that you were able to start Street Voices that way. And I'd love to know about where Street Voices is now. uh,
For sure.
that you
Mhm.
started out as a magazine, was
Mhm.
once just a pamphlet.
Mhm.
Maybe just a little bit about the journey of kind of what it evolved into, and then where you are now.
For sure. So I can say in the history of Street Voices, we've done a lot of different activities. So like it started off as a magazine, and then we started doing magazine launch events, right? So we would do launch events where we would at Young Street Mission. It would bring in different artists and performers, and even one year we even collaborated with Rise, because we did a
Mhm.
year where we covered Rise and we did like a collaborative launch event. So then we started doing events, but then the things with the events was the events were every magazine launch, and we used to launch a magazine 4 times a year. So then there was a need for something more consistent, so we started doing workshops for artist development. So we did some years doing workshops with artist development, and where we train youth in like performance and writing, etc. And then so that's stuff we've done in the past. Most recently we've been really media focused. So earlier this year we did a workshop how to be an independent journalist. I can say that in 2024 we're coming right back with it. We're going to be doing the virtual version of how to be an independent journalist. And it might have a different name because but I'm just calling that for now because that's what it was called last session.
Yeah.
But basically it's media training programs. So us as Street Voices, we've worked with a lot of different creatives, and some of these creatives, what they've done is they stepped up as facilitators to kind of share the knowledge that they've kind of had, working in the field and also working with Street Voices. So our facilitators, some of our past facilitators have included like Katie Atuberi, you know what I mean, who's been a volunteer with us and has gone on to work at the NHL. And I hear she's doing stuff with the Raptors and stuff. I don't know if that's too soon. Maybe y'all know that already. There's Jeffrey Tram, who also
Mhm.
started off as a volunteer with us, and he's currently working with CBC right now, right? So he's one of the facilitators of the program. And there's also like Danae
Yes.
Tamia, who's like she's big on TikTok and she does like marketing content, so and there's also like some other people that aren't confirmed yet, but these three names I just mentioned, they're basically people that have started off as volunteers at Street Voices. Like when I met them, they're volunteers. They've gone on to leverage their volunteering experiences to work in the industry, in the media industry right now. And so yeah, so our programming is basically past volunteers and Street Voices who have experience in industry, sharing their experience, sharing their skills, whether it's marketing with Danae or journalism with Jeffrey or public speaking and networking with Katie Atu. And yeah, so I guess what I can say is
Amazing.
look out for that. Look out for that. Mhm.
Yes. And what did you say the name? That's like a summit that you're going to be.
Yeah, I think you cut out. I think you cut out. You like paused. Okay,
Oh
can you
yes,
hear me?
sorry about.
Yeah. So you asked me about a summit.
uh,
Hello. Yo. I think we lost her, or you lost me. I don't know.
okay.
We lost somebody.
My back. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So sorry. There's a storm going on, I think, outside for me
Oh shit.
where I'm at. So I think, yes. Okay. We are
Oh, where
back.
you at?
Thank you for your. I'm
Mm.
out in the Shawal, in the
Oh, okay.
GTA outer skirts. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just a
Okay.
little rainy out here. So
Mm.
kicking out the Wi-Fi, but We are streaming live, and thank you to everyone who is listening to us live on YouTube and LinkedIn and in 135 countries around the world. Right here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. And we're here talking with Joelle Zola and me, your host, El Delion, about breakdowns and breakthroughs for Joelle in being, a homeless youth who was able to now become the executive director and founder of a not for profit called Street Voices TO. So thank you so much for listening. And what I was speaking to Joelle about is how, the journey of Street Voices and where it has evolved into. And you mentioned some programs as well as a big, I think it's a summit that's going to be coming up. It was cutting out for me, so I apologize. But you mentioned some of my favorite people at Street Voices there, Katie Atu and Jeffrey. And where they're at now. And I would love to know if you do have any plans to do any workshops in the future when it comes to, you mentioned public speaking and things like that. How can folks connect if they would like to get involved with something like that now?
Yeah, so we would be doing call outs for our workshops and for our media team. So all of this is coming out really soon. I chose to do it around this date because it's going to be aligning with these things. So I'd say look out next week for these things.
Hmm.
Look out next week for these things because we're gonna be because we're gonna be doing a call up where we basically bring in different volunteers. She Voices has been volunteer ran from like the beginning of its inception, and
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people, kind of like I've mentioned before, like a lot of people have kind of used it as a stepping stone to get into the media industry. So every year we kind of do a call out where we bring in different volunteers, and I mentioned three. The three I mentioned is only because they're the facilitators of
Yeah.
how to be an independent journalist. They're the facilitators of our upcoming program, which is going to come next year. January is probably going to be the next cohort, so look out for that as well because we're going to be doing promo for that. But there's a whole host of people who came through Street Voices and have gone on to do amazing things. So I know I can mention all of y'all, but shout out
I
to
know.
everyone. You know,
It's
um, yeah.
amazing, amazing. And thank you for mentioning about the fact of that your organization is volunteer driven, volunteer run. And as you go into the future, do you have any plans to, expand outside of volunteer run, or is this something that is really built into the model? I personally have found great success with both models, so I'd love to hear your take for any of the people out there that are thinking about starting their own not for profit.
For sure. So, I can say Street Voices, like the first, like I'm trying to think how long it may have took for me. I think it may have took like 4 years before it became my full-time job. And then maybe 4 or 5 years. And then at first I was a volunteer. I'm the first volunteer at Street Voices. And
Right.
then it became a part-time job. And then it became now it's a full-time job for me, and but it's a part-time job for other people, right? And all these people that it's a part-time job for today, um we hope that it becomes a full-time job for them in the future, and they all started off as volunteers as well. So everybody works part-time at Shoe Voices right now start off as a volunteer. So I bring that up to say that, like, we hope that the trend is kind of like more people go through that route where they become volunteers and then part-time workers and then full-time workers. So no, our hope isn't for this to just be a volunteer ran thing the whole way through. We are definitely always looking at different streams and funding sources. One thing we are going to also be doing is launching a fundraising campaign in the month of November. So
Hey, talk
definitely,
about it.
yeah. So definitely look out for that. And yeah, with the fundraising campaign, which we've never actually done before, I mean, we've never actually fundraised and seek donations before. A lot of our income has been through grants historically. But
Mhm.
but the purpose of this fundraising campaign is to strengthen our capacity so we can continue to do more work, And yeah, so cool.
Yeah, and when it comes to fundraising, so for you, what will the fundraising campaign kind of
Mhm.
look like? for you? Are you going to be canvassing? Is this going to be online? Anything that you can tell us about, without
For
giving it
sure,
all.
for sure, for sure. So it's gonna be so there will be an online version. So She Voices TO will be posting, right? But
Mhm.
there'll also be like a more behind the scenes version where I'm gonna be going in, setting up meetings with people, doing presentation talks. I mean, this campaign is not just to fundraise for money, it's also to raise awareness of our work, right? So it's
Right.
also to raise awareness of our programs. So it's not just so it's also maybe like when I call it a fundraising campaign, I feel like it kind of limits to what the purpose is. It's a full campaign of just us spreading the word of what we do. So if
Mhm.
that means we have to go to a community center, we're doing that. You know, if we're going to a shelter, we're doing that, right? But I think what the next phase of Street Voices is basically we've been running this for 9 years. Next year is about to be our 10-year anniversary, you know. So
Amazing.
the next phase is to now kind of share with the world what we've been up to, you know, and that is what's to come.
Okay, very excited to see the behind the scenes. I've been very enthralled in this conversation from start to finish about how you were able to do this. And I'm just trying to envision you like doing this all. And still, there are definitely details that I think that we need to see. I would love to see, I'm just throwing it out there, like a book or a movie about your life needs to happen, because I really think that this is a very inspiring journey, and it's just really getting started. Honestly, like there's so
Yeah.
much more for your life and where this can all go. I'd love to know if you have a bigger goal in mind for Street Voices, like a vision of where you hope that this gets to, and what's the legacy that you're hoping to leave behind.
Yeah, I think our goal is to expand. So shoelaces, we're not planning anything new. Actually, there is something new that we're planning that I can't talk about. But
Okay.
besides that one thing, we're not planning anything new. We're just planning to expand what we're doing. You know,
Mhm.
so it's like we've been doing workshops for years. You know, but now it's like doing workshops on a bigger impact more frequently, you know. And we've been a media platform for years, but now it's just like doing more media content and pushing that, you know. So we've been a nonprofit for years, but now it's like raising more funds to where we can start hiring people full time, you know. So I would say like there isn't no new vision. It's just expanding about what we're doing. Part of the reason why we're doing the fundraising campaign is because I've been talking to my circle and my inner community, our small community, about Street Voices for years, you know. But it's now time for us to get out of our little bubble and to like speak with the world. So I would say the vision is bringing this movement outside of Toronto and bringing it to other parts of the planet.
Yes, because I love what you were saying earlier, because I see that there's really a model that you have built here, something that can be replicated in other cities for sure, because this that situation exists in so many different places. There are homeless people all over the world, especially youth, and they could use a hub like this to be able to, a safe place to be able to tap into resources they need to be able to either make it off the street, or at least, as you said, survive the situation that they're in. And so, when you mentioned that part, I wanted to go back to the volunteer kind of model that you brought up. I thought that that was something that I feel is needed more of as well. And I just want to reiterate that point about, there is something to be said about somebody who starts out volunteering and then transitions into part time work and then full time. I really do think that your passion for the work comes out a lot more, and you really do find if this is purposeful work for you. Is this really what you are aligned to do? Because you would do it with or without getting paid. And I just really commend that. And I love that that is a part of your business model. And just wanted to make sure that the viewers and people that are listening right now are really catching that, because I think that's a big gem, something to be incorporated into more business models, start, especially community driven organizations. So that one is really, really cool. I do have some other questions for you as well. Just wanted to know about So, were there any people that you met along the way or any advice that you received
Mhm.
that really helped to drive forth this vision in getting you to where you are now?
I think the thing about Street Voices is there's so much people that help me along the way that I feel like anytime I do an interview, somebody gets left out, you know? And I feel like
Mhm.
anytime I have this conversation, somebody gets left out because Street Voices, it was built by the community and it was built by the support. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for other people, you
Right.
know? So it's like I can't, so I'm not gonna single anybody out, but what I will say is that social workers played a really big role, in a sense where, because when I was a homeless youth, social workers were basically like my parents, like my mothers and my fathers,
Mhm.
etc. Because I really didn't have that coming up. Even when I was living at home, I still didn't have that experience. So I would say, and it was social workers that kind of champion this all from the beginning, from when I first had the idea to where it's kind of like, but
Mhm.
but that's just on the helping of it, just like me helping, and the start of it, but I think there's a lot of people, who've been a part of the process. A lot of people been a part of the process. Like there's Amisi, who's our creative director, who's been here from the very beginning. You know what I mean? And there's Selena, who does the social media. You know what I mean? And she's been volunteering with us. She's one of the part-time workers I'm talking about, but she started off as a volunteer, right?
Yeah.
From like when she was in high school, so um like, yeah. And and again, I'm doing the thing where I'm mentioning names and I'm gonna leave people out, so I don't want to
Okay,
do
let's
that.
say
But
let's say any
yeah,
advice, like no names, but
advice.
any gems that you've ever
You
been
know,
dropped that you're like, yo, that really like that sticks in my mind. Or maybe
mhm,
even a gem you dropped, because I know you're a writer and a poet. So
for sure, for sure. You know, I think damn, like I kind of soak everything up. So it's
mhm.
like I feel like there's so much, but my brain is like, right now it's just like, yo, it's not even, it's coming up with anything right now. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? But
I
I
hear you.
think, but I think, but I'm just gonna make up advice on the spot. Like I'm like, if I was gonna give myself advice, I
Yeah,
would,
do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I would tell myself to basically believe in your vision. Because I think I think I think a lot of us have troubles believing in our visions, and you see it all the time because you people will say they want to do something, but then you don't see them doing action towards that thing, and I guess there could be multiple reasons why there's no action, but I think belief is a part of it. Because I think if you really believe in your vision, then you really will, And here's the thing, that was advice I'd give myself, and I actually took that advice. I'm doing it right now, but I don't know if that's like relevant for everybody, because but I do know that the younger version of me, I guess belief is what got me here, because I had nothing but belief. When I started Street Voices, I absolutely had nothing, but I had belief. Yeah.
Mhm. And well, I think that that's very, very relevant. It really does start out, at least I believe too, with mindset. That
Mhm.
as soon as you shift your mindset, that's when you're starting to see the opportunities over the opposition. Because like both always exist, but it's what we feed ourselves that will, determine if we can see the flowers through the weeds. Like, we can keep going with the analogies, but the good and the bad. You'll see more good if you're in your mind thinking that good is for you, and that these things are, you're meant for them. So I do believe that that is a great gem right there. And I love how you fashion that into advice towards your younger self. Are there any things that you have done that you not necessarily would undo or anything like that, but that you are reflective of and you've really learned and grown from? Are there any situations or anything that you think that anyone can learn from, especially when it comes to like in business, like
Mhm.
maybe or even it could be personal, but especially like in business, starting your own business. I know
Mhm.
lots of mistakes are made.
I think if there's one thing I would change was I feel like when I started Street Voices, like, starting Street Voices was never about the money. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But then at the beginning, I really wasn't thinking money, you know? And I think that's great because it's like the spirit of what we do is genuine, but at the same time, in order to make an impact, you need money,
Yeah,
so I think now being older, I'm probably a bit more like um like a bit more business oriented and a bit more like how can we secure funds to continue the work that we're doing. So I think if I would change that, which, and the thing is, I guess I always was from the beginning, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But I
right.
think maybe I would have put a bit more emphasis on that. But
Yeah,
at the same time, that's a funny question for me because I feel like everything was meant to happen, you know?
yeah,
I feel like everything was meant to happen because as I'm hearing myself talk, I feel like had I went that approach, Street Voices would not have manifested in the form that it manifested, you know?
also true. Yes.
So I guess to like contradict my own self that there is no regrets.
It was a trick question. It was a trick question. I always, sometimes I do like certain questions. Once I get the answer, I'm like, oh, I guess I knew that answer too. Like I was hoping that you would say that, you know what, actually, everything was meant to be, and there wasn't really anything I would change. But I love when we go down the rabbit hole and just consider, like, if I could, maybe I would tell myself, like, pay attention to the money a little more or something like that. And that might help somebody who's listening today who is a little, maybe a little bit younger than us, and they are thinking, hey, I want to do something big right now. I want to start my own organization. Um, for you, did you ever have a thought of, I want to start my own not for profit, or it was
No,
more so
no,
about the
no, no.
platform? Yeah.
I think I got here by accident. Like
Okay.
I think if I was younger, I would have faster told you I would have been an artist than
Hmm.
some type of like administrative person because that's what I basically am now. But like yeah, no, I mean it was totally done by accident. I think the idea behind Street Voices was never like, hey, how can we make a whole lot of money. I think the idea from the beginning was how can we have a platform. And then once we created the platform, it's like, oh damn, now we got to sustain this platform. And
Yeah.
then you realize now you're a business person. So that circle of thought, as you see, like you get here by accident. But yeah, no, but we've embraced it, and we've actually done like I did like a whole 360 where I'm not even an artist no more. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was curious to know about that actually. A question that I had in mind for you is, if you weren't doing what you're doing now,
Mhm.
knowing everything that you know, what other profession or career path or, life do you think you would have? Like if
You
not,
know.
you
Mhm.
weren't doing street voices. Yeah.
I damn, that's a great question that
Yes.
I've never been asked. Um, because I think it's always changes for me because I have a lot of different interests. I have a lot of
Okay.
different interests, and maybe that's why Street Voices kind of works for me because it's like we've done merch, so we've kind of been in
Yes. Shout out
fashion,
to Merch.
right? We've done events, so that's like event coordination, right? We've done workshops, right? I've performed, so that's artistry, right?
Yeah.
Like done like media, so that's like social media coordination, etc. So it's like even just running Street Voices, and also like we've done film, like I went to film school, so it's like I think I have this like universal brain about me where
Yeah.
I'm actually interested in so much different things. And to go back to like what would Street Voices change? Actually, we would probably be more focused and be more like just straight to media because we've even done open mics. We did an open mic event called Amplify, right? It was like
Yes.
for a
Yes.
community center. Like we've done so much different things. Like, but I would say one thing that I would change is we would have done media training workshops a lot sooner, and we would have
Okay.
only done media training workshops and then built that up. So I would say that's what I would have done differently. But like, yeah, I'm literally answering this current question with an old question, so I don't even
Yeah.
remember what the current question is. So like,
Oh, it was I wanted to know if you like if you
oh
could
yeah, yeah, yeah.
have
What
a
would be?
job.
You know,
Yes.
I would say,
Today.
you
Today.
know, I think for me, like if I think for me, I would like to be like a scholar.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Like
would
a
like to be a
professor
scholar.
or like
Yeah, yeah, I guess you could say a professor.
or a professional student, like you would be like just studying, like you would just be
Yeah,
acquiring
exactly,
knowledge.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I like to be a scholar. Because I'm very curious, and I think that's also kind of why we got into media because we have a natural curiosity of the world. But I would say, yeah, I'd probably be that, like a scholar. Yeah,
Hmm. That would be an amazing job. Like just
yeah,
I always too wanted to be just a researcher,
hmm,
but just research all sorts of topics, like
yeah,
no limit to what I can know or do. I
yeah.
think that's amazing. Just to acquire knowledge and to know. I definitely hear you on that one. That is a really cool one. That's a cool one. I asked that question a lot. I've never gotten that answer before, so that one's cool. And so we've come to almost the end. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, no, I have so many things I want to know, but I think that we got a really good in-depth view of your journey and how you were able to transform your breakdowns into breakthroughs. You are still continuing to break through, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next. So I'd love for you, before you leave us today, to let us know anything else that you might want for folks to know and how they can really tap into what Street Voices is doing. How can they donate to your
Mhm.
upcoming fundraising campaign? Let us know.
No, for sure. I mean, to just donate in general, if you go to www.streetvoices.ca, not .com, .ca, you can actually, there's a big donate button there. You can just click on it, so you could do it that way. But I would say, but a few things for people listening is, for those of y'all who are interested in joining the media team, looking for experience working in the media industry, whether that's journalism, videography, photography, etc., definitely look out for a call out that we're going to be doing, looking for new volunteers for the next end of the year and the year coming up. Our workshops are going to be coming up in 2024. So for those of y'all that are looking to like learn new experiences, I mean, like learn new skills in media journalism. So this is more like the less hands-on, but more like the student aspect of it. Look out for our workshops that are going to be coming out next year. And yeah, the fundraising campaign, we're going to be launching that in a few weeks. So look out for that as well. And at the very least, follow us on all social media platforms at Street Voices TO. We have a directory. So if you or anybody you know is in need of our services, definitely go to our website and look. We have a whole bunch of different services. So check it out. And yeah, I probably forgot something, but check out the movement, Street Voices, yo.
Yes, make sure you check out the movement. I'm very patiently waiting for that announcement to be dropped about the program that you have going on, because I know so many people that would love to be a part of it, and I think that what you're doing is incredibly important, training the next generation of youth, especially from those marginalized communities. So thank you so much, Joelle, for doing what you do, for continuing to shine, and for, dropping the gems and inspiring people. I know that tonight this conversation has helped to elevate some people, I hope, to their next platform, their next destination. And we want to thank you again for being here on Voices of the Millennials on Love Bay Radio. And we will see you soon. I know that we have some projects that we'll be working on together very soon. So, all the best, and don't be a stranger. We would love to catch up with you in the future and see where you're at next.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yes,
All
thank
right.
you for having me, and everybody have a great night.
Blessings, blessings. Thank you so much. That was Joelle Zola coming to us live from Street Voices TO. He is the executive director and founder. I think those two could go together, executive founder. Maybe I'll make that a thing one day. That was a very, very elevated conversation that we were able to have, really diving in deep to how Joelle was able to literally make it off of the streets to being the owner and the executive director, as I mentioned, of a not for profit organization that provides a platform for the voiceless, those youth that are on the streets, or even youth who are living in places where they're not able to use their voices to make a difference. Street Voices TO is that platform. So make sure you go and check them out. Street Voices TO .ca. All right. So make sure it's streetvoices.ca and Street Voices TO on everything, Twitter and Instagram. So I said to y'all that I did have an announcement right here on Love Bay Radio. One of the things that I love to do on Voices of Millennials is providing this platform for people to amplify the voices of the people in our communities that have not been able to, for whatever reason, be able to speak on certain topics and issues and things like that. And so I'm really, really, really grateful for this appointment that I have. And one of the other things that I do outside of here is I also provide other platforms. So as I said many times, I am a real life elevator. I elevate as I rise. So as I get up there, I love to bring other people with me and show them how it's done. And so one of the other platforms that I just recently wrapped up season 1 of is Our Crib Uncut. And I have on our t-shirt here today. Shameless plug. Just wanted to shout that out. Our Crib Uncut, Our Crib Uncut. Make sure y'all check that out. It's Our Crib Uncut on everything. And why I'm shouting that out is because on Friday, there are a lot of people out there who've been, wanting to connect with me in person. They want to support things that I'm doing. And so I have some things for you to support. You should come out this Friday if you want to celebrate, this season, this spooky season for some of us, Freaky Friday. We are having an event at Stacked Market, and that's in Toronto, and it's called Haunted Crib. So we're turning our crib into a haunted mansion. We're going to be having performances, giveaways, costume contests. You could win up to $500. Lots of fun things going on, and it's all to bring together individuals into a place, a safe place where we can connect. And we're also having a vendor market during the day. So from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., you can come out and support local businesses at our shop's local vendor market. And then you can join our Halloween party after. That's where the performances will be happening, all the fun games and the giveaways. And we are having an open mic. So for season 2 of Our Crib Uncut, which is a platform that is providing on-screen and off-screen training. So learning how to be an on-screen personality as well as being off-screen, and learning how to produce a talk show is what we really do on there. And we do that with young people. And we want to be able to expand that program. So we're having live events in our off season to raise money so that we can come back with a season 2. And we are looking for guests for that season 2. So you can check us out. We're also a YouTube show as well. So we're sharing the love, and I wanted to let y'all know about that. And if you comment on this show, I'm going to check it out in the next 24 hours, and you can win tickets if you'd like. If you're in Toronto and you're able to make it out to Stack Market for any of those activities I just mentioned, comment, like, subscribe, do all of that fun stuff to Love Bay Radio, and I will give you 2 tickets to our Crib Uncut Haunted Crib event this Friday. All right? So that's really all I got for you. That's all the announcements. We had an amazing show as always. Next week, we will be back with another guest to have another elevated conversation with another creative in another business owner, business person, entrepreneur. Essentially, we love to bring creatives and business together here on Voices of the Millennials and talk to individuals who can help us to understand and demystify what it takes to be able to turn your breakdowns into breakthroughs. All right. Peace and love and blessings. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all next Wednesday at 7 p.m. right here on Love Bay Radio.